Dun 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 dun. Okay, so Pete Buttigieg, I think, just sort of proved why the Democrats are really screwed. They're really screwed. See, it's not just that the Democrats are psychopaths that are just, at this point they've become so insanely radicalized and partisan that they're basically never ever gonna fucking even consider looking at a Republican policy as anything other than Nazism. So that's a tough break right now. But it's worse than that because they're so fractured that it's the individual candidate supporters are so rabid and so irrational that every Democrat candidate is not safe. So anytime you're in a question and answer session, a town hall, you're going to get gotchas from fellow Democrats who maybe they're a Warren supporter or a Sanders supporter, and they look at Pete Buttigieg, who's the last basically protected class minority candidate. He's a gay man, but he's a gay evangelist Christian, which fucking just honestly I think cuts the balls off his whole gay edge, which he won't use, by the way. He really doesn't want to be looked at as a gay man. He just wants to be Pete, however the fuck you say his last name. And, you know, outside of it really looking like he bought and paid for an Iowa win because they proved that he paid $30,000 into the app that collated all the fucking data of the caucus. And he went from like a distant fifth to first place somehow. And they're flipping coins to decide delegates in that fucking free-rolling shit show that would work terribly even under the best of circumstances, free of rampant voter fraud. But anyway, he gets asked this question at a town hall that basically just put him dead in the water. This issue that Democrats are so irrationally this wedge issue that they care so much about, which all the facts are against them, they shouldn't be concerned about it because it literally isn't a problem, is police brutality and racial profiling. Particularly just the idea that if you arrest more black people than the year before, or if you increase arrests of black people, black criminals, feasibly, you're doing something bad. Now, to be fair, he was being asked about marijuana arrests. Pete, you say that you care about racial consciousness and law enforcement, but when you became mayor of, what was it, South Bend, Indiana, South Bend, Illinois, wherever the fuck this podunk town is that he was mayor of, you increased arrests on black people in possession of marijuana or whatever. Now, Pete Buttigieg can't get around this because he's like, well, the thing is, and then the person tried to re-step on his neck and say, no, the arrests went up. The arrests went up. And he says, well, the thing why it's different is, and Pete gave an answer that I found very interesting. He said, well, look, what I changed for the better, crime went down in my city when I became mayor, and they're like, but the arrests of marijuana suspects, black marijuana suspects or whatever went up. He's like, hold on, look. We changed the focus of our drug arrests to target drugs that were involved with violent organized crime, particularly gang violence. And the arrests went up because I was targeting this element that was killing tons of black teenagers in my town. And I wanted to fix that, so I targeted these street gangs. I commend him on answering that way because, look, folks, here comes the facts. America is maligned, especially online, by other countries that are less than us and worse than us and more inferior to us and less free than us. Saying that we're all wall-to-wall school shootings, that we're all violent, redneck, hyper-religious zealots, uneducated, blah, 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 blah. And they think that we're crazy savages. The thing is, America's gun homicide rate is lower than Sweden, New Zealand, Australia, the UK, on and on. If you control for white people. Now, New Zealand's more white than us. Australia's more white than us. The UK is just barely still more white than the United States. That's going away very quickly. UK's already dead, folks. Brexit didn't change a fucking thing. Your fucking culture's dead. Your country's dead. You have no rights. It doesn't even matter if you escape the EU. The fucking UK Parliament is fucking just as bad, just as authoritarian, just as psychotic and wacky, and more interested in arresting people for tweets and Facebook posts than the rape of children and stabbing people to death in the fucking streets by the tens of thousands in a country of what, 72 or something million people that is roughly the size of the state of Florida. America's violence that is basically overtaken roughly half the fucking square footage, the square miles or square kilometers, if you like, of the UK. In America, our comparable crazy violence is isolated to places like Chicago, Illinois, Detroit, Michigan, Baltimore, Maryland, New York City, New York, Southern California. And the reason why is because these areas are full of the people who are skewing all the violence data. See, America's gun homicide rate is lower than all these countries I just mentioned if you only count white people. Black people in America commit gun homicide rate not just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times higher than white people. I believe they account for something like 64% of all gun violence. Now, a lot of people like to say the 13 do 50, but it's actually, if you're more accurate, about 5.4% do 54%. It might even be lower than that. See, 13% of the United States is black, and the places where these gun violence is happening are places that are 40, 50, 60, 70, 80% black, not 13%. And it's not black women, it's not old men, it's not little kids. 15 to 35 is the soldier fighting age, soldiers of the street. And they are killing at a rate way outstripping even the violent Hispanic gangs like MS-13 and the Mexican Mafia. They're not even touching what these black street gangs are doing. And they're doing it even in places like South Bend, apparently, where fucking foppish yuppie douches like Pete Buttigieg, I think it is, where this guy is from, he's targeting these people because they're the ones killing people in his little podunk town. And that's what's happening in a lot of places. You can't have this social justice thing continue. Because eventually you got to confront, why are all these black people getting arrested? Well, black culture has a problem. Well, black people, historical oppression. Affirmative action's been going on for about 40 years, 50 years. The favorability, like, look, if you're a black person and you are anywhere within a couple dozen light years, if you're in the same solar system as the necessary grades and test scores to get into an Ivy League school, and you are black and you got a nice pretty face that they can put on a poster, you're in, Jack. If you're Asian and you're trying to say get into Yale, your scores are actually penalized against you because of how well Asians do at getting into these schools. If you're white, you're still slightly penalized. You're heavily penalized if you're Asian. If you're black, they do everything they can to justify getting you in the door. It's not fair. And it's not fair. It's not fair because historical oppression. No, it's literally they're doing everything they possibly can justify doing to help you. And you're saying, don't arrest any of us because you're racist if you arrest any of us. Well, you finish school. You don't knock up a black girl when you're 14. Don't knock up 3 different women before the age of 18. Or girls, then, I should say, not women. Don't get involved with drugs. Don't even smoke pot. Get a job. Get married. and don't then have kids, guess what? The black people who do that, almost none of them are in poverty. Married, two-income, stable black households don't have a fucking problem. And you know what? They're not even usually anywhere near the problem, because people who manage to do that usually live in white neighborhoods. Gentrified neighborhoods. Ooh, ooga booga, Uncle Tom's, fucking yeep-de-diddly-dee, Song of the South action, right? Because what? Because they made something of themselves and got out of the ghetto? You need to realize that black people hate black people who get their shit together. Anybody who makes it look like, oh, it's actually not impossible for you to change your situation. But you gotta admit, what's hurting, this population, by the way, is ultimately fatherlessness. The amount of black kids who are being born today to an unwed, single, 16-year-old black girl, teenage girl, who's probably being raised herself by a single black female, who was raised herself by a single black female. This is going back a problem that's getting into the 4th and 5th generations right now, because fatherlessness was not an issue during Jim Crow. It's an issue now that we give you lots of welfare money for having 6 different kids from 6 different men. This is a problem that Democrats are persisting in exacerbating, and the black populace is not interested in correcting. And the Democrats would be well served to not talk about it, because if they're honest about it, not only are they going to fuck up the whole sock just racial fucking representation bullshit web of lies that they've spun, they're also going to insult and offend the black caucus that they depend on, the Democrat plantation of stupid welfare slaves who are not interested in seizing the brass ring. Not interested, excuse me, I just had a Trump seizure because I mispronounced a word. Not interested in seizing the brass ring that is not up here. It's being lowered on a string right in front of their nose. Here's the carrot. Eat the carrot. No. Fuck the carrot. The carrot's for white people. I want to be beaten by the fucking stick as long as you give me my fucking $800 a month. So who's really the dumbass, fucking uneducated yokel from places like Alabama, fucking Missouri, Ferguson, Missouri, fucking hot Atlanta, Georgia, Gainesville, Negroes in the house? Yeah, who's really the fucking dumbass rednecks? And who are they voting for? The Democrats, the people who have been exploiting them since before they even had any rights at all. Democrats have been exploiting black people since black people weren't even people. They were chattel fucking goddamn workhorse fucking animals in a barn. Why wouldn't you want to vote for the guy who's lowering black unemployment, the guy who's actually raising wages by doing the one thing that actually naturally raises wages, which is cutting regulation? Because guess what? If you raise the minimum wage, do you know what all those businesses that are hiring all the black people, places like the fucking Walmart and the fast food chains and the fucking clothing stores and shit, they'll cut your hours. You try to say if somebody works full-time, you got to give them benefits. You're going to be working 39 hours or 29 hours or whatever is 1 hour less than full-time for the rest of your fucking life. They won't give it to you. They will pass the buck. They will pass the fucking financial strain to you, the bottom-level people on the fucking plantation. And this goes for the white people and Hispanic people and whatever the fucking other race of people who are also folding clothes and fucking goddamn working at entry-level retail and fast food and all that shit. Everybody who's in those positions, most of which, by the way, in just pure widespread demographics, are white, will also be fucked. You're all fucked. All the poor that the Democrats supposedly want to help will be directly fucked if you vote for them. Because you're not getting what they're promising you. All they're doing is fucking over a corporation who's going to adjust to that fuckery by passing the strain, the weight, the burden down to you. And also, they will raise prices, which fucks Literally everybody who is in the consumer side of this fucking goddamn economy equation. You want to know why the fucking gas prices are going up? Why a Big Mac's fucking $5? You want to know why fucking cigarettes cost so goddamn fucking much? You want to know why a can of soda went from 50 cents to $1.85 in fucking 9 years? Democrats, you dumb shits. This can be fixed.